President Trump held a rally in the South Bronx yesterday, one of the most Democrat districts in the country, also one of the most dangerous. Not the sort of place that Republicans tend to campaign. In fact, the last Republican presidential candidate to campaign in the South Bronx was Ronald Reagan. Coincidentally, also the last Republican presidential candidate to win New York. AOC, who grew up in wealthy northern Westchester before restyling herself Jenny from the Block and representing parts of the Bronx in Congress, she predicted that Trump would have a low turnout, like she usually gets at her rallies. In fact, Trump had a massive turnout. At the very least, thousands of people. There are some conflicting reports of how many, but we're talking about thousands and thousands of people, despite the rain, and maybe more than that, as even the liberal media had to admit.
What's the crowd like, and what kind of response did he get?
Well, certainly a bigger crowd than I think Democrats would like to see, particularly given this is one of the bluest counties in the entire country. Now, one of the things that was interesting to me is that the Trump campaign said that they were going to micro-target to get people from the community to come to this rally. I wasn't sure what to expect. I've gone to a lot of these rallies across the country, and there are often people who travel hundreds of miles to see Donald Trump, and they're not necessarily part of the community.
So what did Trump say and do at this rally? It was the usual campaign fare, plus a little cross-promotion with some local rappers.
Here as well as rapper Chef G. Does everybody know Chef? Where is Chef G? Where is he? Come on up, fellas. Rapper Sleepy Hollow. Come on up here, fellas. How are you, man? Hey. Oh, I like that. I want to get that done.
President Trump. Oh, man. One thing I want to say. One thing I want to say. They always gonna whisper your accomplishments and shout your failures. Trump gonna shout the wins for all of us. Make America great again.
Thank you, fellas.
I appreciate you.
I appreciate it, man. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob.
Thank you very much. I like those teeth. I want to find out where you did. I got to get my teeth like that. I want that to happen to me.
I want those gold teeth. Where's old dirty bastard? Where's ODB? Probably mobbing with the DOGG right off the streets of CPT. Thank you, folks. Thank you. Trump is just incredible. Abolish term limits. Make him president for life. I'm joking, sort of, even though actually Ronald Reagan, his last political crusade was to abolish term limits. Also just saying that. But hey, I digress. Regardless, Trump has a political superpower that no top candidate has had since Reagan. And the superpower is that Trump is a showbiz genius, and he knows that the show must go on, which means that he is completely unflappable. A lot of politicians are stiff. Something happens that they didn't expect. They don't know what to do. Trump, he just rolls with it. Attack him in a debate, he's going to come up with a one-liner. Only Rosie O'Donnell, because you'd be in jail. The list goes on and on. Reagan could do it too. Raid Trump's home? What's he going to do? He's going to raise millions of dollars off the headlines. Indict him in New York. Hold him court prisoner in New York. He's going to hold a rally with rappers in the South Bronx. Politics is the application of eternal principles to constantly changing circumstances. No one in politics adapts and meets the moment faster than Trump. I'm Michael Knowles. This is The Michael Knowles Show. Welcome back to the show. Chris Murphy, Democrat senator from Connecticut, says if you want to make neighborhoods safer, you have to accept more immigrants, illegal aliens specifically. So we're going to take a little look at the numbers of Chris Murphy's neighborhood. You will not be surprised to hear what those numbers show. First, though, we got to talk about Pure Talk. Go to puretalk.com/Knowles. In America, we are incredibly fortunate to have brave men and women who volunteer to serve in our military. They dedicate their lives to protecting our way of life and ensuring our nation's security. These men and women voluntarily lay their lives on the line for us. But when their service ends, transitioning to civilian life can be difficult, especially given the current economic climate. That is why Pure Talk proudly supports America's Warrior Partnership. Since 2014, America's Warrior Partnership has worked with tens of thousands of veterans in its quest to stop veteran suicide and help veterans and their families live the purposeful lives they deserve. And you can join the fight. New customers who switch to Pure Talk can make a one-time donation matched dollar for dollar by Pure Talk or round up their initial order at checkout. If you're already a Pure Talk customer, you can also make recurring donations by rounding up your monthly bill. Pure Talk saves the average family over $900 per year. How about we give some of that savings back to our nation's veterans who dedicate their lives and risk their lives to protect us? Go to puretalk.com/Knowles, Knowles, to make the switch. Choose a wireless company that shares your beliefs and is half the price of Verizon, AT&T, or T-Mobile. puretalk.com/Knowles to upgrade your cell phone service to America's most dependable 5G network. puretalk.com/Knowles. Before we get into the news, there's a lot of news to get into, a lot shaking up the presidential race. There's some breaking news. And this is a little personal, so I have to get to it off the top. Media Matters, which is a left-wing activist organization that exists solely to get me and other public conservatives fired. Media Matters, an organization that is funded by some of the worst and most powerful leftists in the culture, exists to get conservatives in the media, not elected office, in the media, fired for saying things that they don't like. Media Matters has just had to fire a lot of people because their business isn't working anymore. By my count, by a very conservative count, Media Matters has tried to get me fired 228 times over the years. Distinct occasions. And the number is probably higher than that. I am basing that number just off of the number of articles under my section of the Media Matters website. Now they laid off at least a dozen staffers and management and people at all levels of the organization. And the reason for this is Elon Musk is apparently suing them for defamation. They're all blaming it on Musk. Now, there's one Media Matters publicist. I don't know. I refer to them as my publicists because they clip out many of the best parts of my show and they get them a lot of views and get more people to watch my show. There are two people there specifically who have done that over the years. That would be Jason Campbell and Zachary Drennan. I'm very pleased that neither of those fellas have been fired because they're the best at the company. Because only the creme de la creme are assigned to take me out, baby. You know, they're the tippity top of the Media Matters hierarchy, but a lot of their colleagues got fired. So Mr. Drennan writes, many of my best colleagues at Media Matters lost their jobs today. I'm sharing their announcements in this thread. However you feel about our work, it should worry you that any billionaire could do this to any outlet at any time for any reason. It's a sad day for free speech. Media Matters is a billionaire-funded company that exists strictly to get people fired for saying things that the billionaire liberals don't like. That the irony is very great. Still, though, I don't really like Schadenfreude because I think it veers into sinfulness and it's not good for your own soul. And, you know, who knows? These people all have very strange views of the world and they have all faced lots of challenges in their lives. And you sort of think there, but for the grace of God go I. So anyway, I hope that the Media Matters people, they'll be all right. Right now, they're all wrong. So I hope they'll end up all right. And I hope that they decide to turn their attentions, their lives and their labor toward more edifying pursuits than trying to get me fired. 228 attempts, none yet successful. Meanwhile, on the Democrat side, Bobby Kennedy Jr. He kept the head scratchers coming. You know, in recent weeks, he's done things that are a little strange, like when he endorsed a...
I don't think very many Trump voters are voting for this guy. Certainly not after the past couple weeks. Now, speaking of San Francisco, story out. This is in Yahoo. Says that one of the biggest burgeoning new businesses is selling banned books. One man's plan for a San Francisco business: banned books and naked booksellers. So you can read it in Yahoo News. Comes originally from the LA Times. Amid San Francisco's retail crisis, one man has a business idea he thinks could be wildly lucrative. Banned books sold by buck-naked bodies. And there's this guy, George Davis, a self-proclaimed body freedom activist, who pitched the idea on Craigslist, and he's gone on and wants to make this a reality. What's so silly about the minute I saw this headline, I said, they're not selling banned books. The naked booksellers, that's kind of weird, but one thing, maybe they will be naked behind the counter, but the one thing I know, they're not going to be selling banned books. And sure enough, he comes out and he says, stripped to its barest concept, his bookstore would employ only nude booksellers and sell only banned books. Davis believes the store will cater largely to the LGBTQ plus community and would draw in crowds looking to ogle and, he hopes, buy. LGBTQ books are not banned. Those are books that people pretend are banned, and sometimes the handful of Republican lawmakers who have anything resembling a spine will ban them from kindergarten classrooms, will ban them from elementary schools, maybe just up to the third grade, but maybe. But those books are not banned. Books that are banned are books like David Irving saying the Holocaust didn't happen. Okay, those are banned books. And by the way, let's not forget, I'm not a free speech absolutist. All right? You're not going to see me guilty of the charge of hypocrisy, because I do think society needs standards and taboos. I don't think every book should be in every bookstore. I think we need good norms of taste and behavior. I'm part of a church that had an index of prohibited books for a very long time, until very, very recently. So I'm not saying we need totally naked people to sell us any book out there, but don't pretend that gender queer is a banned book. 5-year-olds are reading it. That's not true. I can go on Amazon right now and buy, I would guess, virtually any book that is being sold in this weirdo's bookstore. There are books that I can't buy, and some books that I'm not even interested in buying. But it ain't these. It's not the sexual liberation books. It's not the left books that I can't read. Well, we're banned. We're so bad. This is like every year when the libs put out their banned book lists, and it includes things like, To Kill a Mockingbird. No, To Kill a Mockingbird is not a banned book. Every school child in America reads it. That's fake. It's a fake presentation of victimhood. It's so that the libs can pretend that they are, the ascendant proletariat, long beleaguered, but grabbing the reins of power, speaking truth to power. They're not. They're the power. They're the power. These naked guys in San Francisco trying to sell porn out of their shop, they are the dominant power. Or at the very least, the established powers totally support them. Now, when you want your body to look good and feel good and enjoy good taste, you got to check out Good Ranchers. Go to goodranchers.com. Use promo code Knowles. Burgers are one of the most popular foods in America. You've probably eaten one recently. I had 2 last night, not with 2 buns, but sweet little Elisa now makes her own buns, and she made me a nice, juicy double cheeseburger. You're probably craving one right now because I'm talking about it. Make this summer one to remember with Good Ranchers. Right now, our listeners will get free Wagyu burgers for a year. I can hear the salivation dripping from Mr. Davies' gullet as he thinks about these juicy burgers. Well, you're not getting my burgers, Buster. I'm taking them home when Good Ranchers ships them over. They're the best. Good Ranchers meat and all their stuff is absolute top of the line, and their prices simply cannot be beaten. I don't know how they do it, but in particular, the burgers are the greatest burgers I've ever had. they're unreal, and I don't know how Good Ranchers is able to do it, but you should go check it out right now. Head on over to goodranchers.com. Use code Knowles, Knowles. Claim your free burgers for a year. Support veterans this Memorial Day season. Goodranchers.com. Use code Knowles. Goodranchers.com. Promo code Knowles. Good Ranchers, American meat delivered. Speaking of how liberals dress or do not dress, Kamala Harris and her husband, Mr. Kamala Harris, just posted a photo before they went out to a state dinner in honor of the president of Kenya. And all I want to say about this photo, they look good. That's all I want to say. Don't you ever accuse me, I guess Media Matters probably isn't watching the show right now because most of them got fired. But the ones who didn't might still be watching the show. And don't you ever say that I don't ever say anything nice about the left. Even Kamala Harris, who is a disreputable and generally a difficult person to watch. She looked very nice. She looked elegant. She wore a nice gown. It was a ball gown, to the floor. And there was a sort of a cape almost over it. Very modest, but elegant, covered her arms. And then Mr. Kamala Harris wore a suit that basically looked good, decent enough looking suit. I don't think he's exactly a fashionista. I don't think he spends a lot of time at the haberdasher, but they look good. And the reason I want to point this out is that generally in American culture, we look like slobs. This is especially true on the left. They just present themselves in a casual and a degrading way. And these two, actually, they looked nice and good job. That should be encouraged. We need a little bit more respectability. And you're not going to get it if only the right is respectable. You need the left to act that way too. That's it. That's the one nice thing I'll probably ever say about Kamala Harris. But, they look good. Good job. Now, the Biden campaign does not look very nice right now. It looks very weak. Joe Biden has just announced that he will be canceling $7 billion in student loans, which will affect about 160,000 people. Now, this will not affect the really poor people, the really struggling working class Americans, the oppressed racial and ethnic minorities from marginalized communities. It's not going to affect them. Most Americans don't graduate from a 4-year college. The student loan play is a play for largely white, liberal yuppies, upwardly mobile, probably going to get decent paying jobs or at least have the chance to get decent paying jobs. So this is a bribe to people who are already doing relatively pretty well. But Biden needs to secure that vote, especially these days when Biden has lost the kids on the college campuses who, though they're not always the most reliable voters, when they vote, they are reliably Democrat. So it's an easy payoff for him. Democrats have been talking about forgiving student loans which because the graduates are so often Democrats, it's just a payoff to their political friends and allies. They've been talking about this for a long time. It's just an easy way to say, oh, okay, the college libs are upset with me. Give them $7 billion. Is that enough? Is $7 billion enough to get me across the finish line in November? I hope so. Perhaps it will be. This policy is bad in principle. Not even because I'm opposed in principle to debt forgiveness every so often. I don't know, like a Jubilee year. We see certain cycles of debt forgiveness going back to antiquity. So in principle, that doesn't bother me. Only forgiving the loans of relatively wealthy, upwardly mobile people seems unjust and unfair in principle. This is bad in practice in that it is going to encourage more people to take out $250,000 loans for degrees that are largely worthless at institutions that are designed to make these people hate their country and hate their families and less inclined to flourish. That's true. But the one really good thing about this policy is it is good in what it portends. It is good in that it shows Joe Biden thinks he can lose. He thinks he can lose. He wouldn't be doing these kinds of things if he thought the election were totally wrapped up. I talked to some Republicans who have been rightly, I think, scandalized by the way the libs rigged the 2020 election, changed all the rules, allowed voting weeks and months before, allowed billionaire libs to fund leftist organizations that moved ballot drop boxes in ways that were actually illegal and changed the laws in some ways unconstitutionally, like in the case of Pennsylvania, and I could go on and on and on. They're scandalized by that, and they think there is no way that the Republicans can win. Trump can run the best campaign. He can get every rapper in the South Bronx to endorse him. Doesn't matter. The fix is in, right? That's what they think. No. They might succeed at rigging it, that Joe Biden might win. I'm not saying that won't happen, but Joe Biden would not be doing these things if the election were already in the bag. He wouldn't be releasing oil from that Northeast Reserve if the election were already in the bag. He wouldn't be rushing desperately to hand out these payoffs to his base if the fix were totally in. He could just go sit in his basement and drink a glass of Ovaltine. But the fix is not totally in. Trump, at least as of right now, can still win, which is great because he's a very stable genius. And when you want to check out your own genius, you got to check out Working Genius. Go to workinggenius.com, promo code Knowles. Far too many people are not productive and they're not fulfilled in their jobs. Too many teams fail to maximize productivity and achieve great results. That is why Patrick Lencioni, the author of The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team, created Working Genius. This 10-minute assessment is revolutionizing the way managers and leaders think about teamwork and productivity. For individuals, Working Genius is the simplest and fastest way to discover your gifts and better understand the type of work you thrive in. It provides detailed insights into your areas of genius, along with an easy-to-apply report that will help you leverage this information in your work and life. For teams, Working Genius helps maximize productivity and fulfillment. Ask everyone on your team to take the assessment and generate a custom team map to reveal strengths and potential weaknesses. You will be amazed at the results. This will quickly help you understand where and why your team gets stuck and how to leverage one another to achieve more together. The 6 types of Working Genius have been used by nearly 1 million people since its launch in 2020. It is becoming the tool of choice for teams and organizations that want to maximize productivity, fulfillment, and results. Head on over to workinggenius.com. Use code Knowles at checkout for 20% off the $25 assessment. That is workinggenius.com, promo code Knowles. My favorite comment yesterday is from Kale I thought it was Kale B. Vick, like, the vegetable, then the insect, and then the man who abused those dogs at the pit bull fighting rings. But no, I think it's Caleb Vick. Anyway, moving on. He says, single-handedly, Michael, you've convinced me to drop my marijuana addiction for pure alcoholism for the next 20 years. You're a real one. Thank you for the advice. It's not, you might have you're welcome. You're welcome. That's all I can say. Bribing the yuppies is not going to be enough for the Democrats to win the election. It'll take them far. The yuppies are an important part of the Democrat base, but it's not going to take them all the way. So what is Chris Murphy doing? He is trying to flood the zone. Chris Murphy, as Democrats have been doing for many years now, is encouraging mass migration. And he wants an open border because at the very least, he knows that the children and grandchildren of immigrants are more likely to vote for Democrats. There are some exceptions, like Cuban immigrants and their children are more likely to be Republican. That's why Obama killed Cuban immigration and just focused on the other Latin American immigration. There are some who do vote Republican, but just Dems are looking at a numbers game. If the majority are going to vote for them, they're going to blow up the border and encourage an invasion. The arguments that they've made for that are weak, but they tug on the heartstrings. These people, they're desperate. They're fleeing political persecution. It's usually not true. Usually they're just fleeing economic hardship, but they're their mothers, their children. Usually it's just young men of fighting age, but please help the poor masses. Okay. It tugs on the heartstrings. I get it. Chris Murphy has gone further. Chris Murphy is now making the argument that when you take in a bunch of unvetted illegal aliens, it actually makes your neighborhood safer.
It's part of an effort to try to make Americans believe that there is a specific dangerous threat posed to you by immigrants, that you should be afraid of immigrants, that there is a crime wave sweeping this country caused by people who are coming to this country to seek a better life. The facts are this. Whether you choose to want to believe the facts or not, that is not my decision. It is your decision. But immigrants commit crimes in this country at a rate lower than natural-born citizens. You may not believe that if you watch Fox News every night, but I hate to tell you, it is the truth. So if you want a safe town or a safe neighborhood, you're better off. You are statistically safer if you have immigrants.
Okay, first off, notice the sleight of hand. The conflation of illegal aliens who cross the border with the help of criminal and often satanic cartels like MS-13 with immigrants broadly. You know, your great Aunt Sally who came over from Liverpool and a poor Honduran peasant who was smuggled across the border by Satan-worshiping gangsters who are using those people to funnel drugs and to promote crime. Not the same thing, okay? So the libs always conflate those two terms in order to blur the statistics. And of course, any crime that an illegal alien commits in the country is one crime too many. You can't compare them to crimes of native-born American citizens who have rights to be here, rather than foreign nationals who should not be here. Every American citizen who is murdered by an illegal alien, and there are many of them, is a needless death. And the blood of that murder is on the hands of the Democrats who encourage the illegal aliens to come over. Totally needless. But even put the statistical magic tricks aside for a second. Does Chris Murphy really believe this? If you really want to be safe, you need to have a lot of immigrants in your neighborhood. Illegal alien, even legal immigrants, sure, whatever, Chris. Do you really believe that? Because Nate Hochman, great right-wing writer, young conservative, just kind of looks at the numbers. This should be an easy statistic to check, right? And he points out, he says, this is Chris Murphy's house, a beautiful 3-bedroom in Northwest Washington, D.C. The neighborhood is 76% white. That's weird. The median household income is 300% the national average. That's kind of weird. It's not generally where the immigrants are going. The illegal aliens. This is an abstract debate for him, writes Nate. He's never had to live with the consequences of his own policies. The proof that not one lib truly believes what Chris Murphy is saying, including Chris Murphy, is how fast Martha's Vineyard shipped those illegal aliens out of town when Ron DeSantis gave them a free plane ticket. That's the proof. If illegal immigration, if any kind of immigration, really makes neighborhoods safer, better, more flourishing, Martha's Vineyard would have started to build them houses. But that's not what Martha's Vineyard did. The minute that illegal aliens showed up for pretty much the first time ever in a really nice, wealthy, liberal enclave, what happened? The libs made sure they were on a bus within 48 hours. We love you. Thank you. You're welcome. Bye-bye. Bye-bye now. Okay, yeah, no, you're so wonderful. You're a future dreamer. We're going to pay for your college. Well, yeah, your college over there, not here. You're not going to Cape Cod University. Okay, bye. Bye. We love you. Bye. We love you from afar, from a real far distance. Bye. Can you go over there to like Texas or something? That'd be great. They don't believe it. They don't believe it for one little second. Don't watch what they say on the floor of the U.S. Senate. Watch how they behave. Speaking of illegals and the U.S. Capitol, there's a vote yesterday over a law. There's a law in D.C. that says that I can't believe this even has to be a law. The law says if you're not a U.S. citizen, you don't get to vote in the U.S. federal district. If you're a foreign national, you have no right to be in America. You don't get to vote in American elections in the capital of America. There is a law. And so, of course, the Democrats want to repeal that law. And how'd the vote go? Luckily, it gets shut down. But there were a huge number of Democrats who voted to allow illegal aliens to vote. A huge number. And so what does that tell you? It tells you that Democrats, at least in their behavior, are transparent about their desires for mass migration. Democrats, not in their speech, but in their behavior, they say, yeah, the reason we want the illegal aliens is the votes. Of course. And maybe it won't work in 2024, but they're playing the long game, maybe 2028, maybe 2032, maybe 2036. Now, speaking of 2024, President Trump just picked up a big announcement. This would be from a former competitor of his, Nikki Haley.
I put my priorities on a president who's going to have the backs of our allies and hold our enemies to account, who would secure the border, no more excuses, a president who would support capitalism and freedom, a president who understands we need less debt, not more debt. Trump has not been perfect on these policies. I've made that clear many, many times. But Biden has been a catastrophe. So I will be voting for Trump. Having said that, I stand by what I said in my suspension speech. Trump would be smart to reach out to the millions of people who voted for me and continue to support me, and not assume that they're just going to be with him. And I genuinely hope he does that.
So Nikki's voting for Trump. Nikki Haley previously had said she didn't know if she was going to vote for Trump. She's going to vote for Trump. And she says, but Trump will have to earn the votes of my supporters, which might be true. But then they're not really supporters of hers. You know, if you are a supporter or follower of a political candidate, then you follow that candidate. So if Nikki says, I'm going to vote for Trump, then that means one would imagine a large number of her voters will vote for Trump. That's the value of an endorsement. It's not so you get one extra vote. It's so that you get the vote of an entire political flank. And of course she's doing this. I've said from the beginning, Nikki Haley has very good political skills. I know there are a lot of conservatives who don't like her these days, but she's a very talented politician. She's succeeded. She's made it to the very heights of politics. And so, of course, I mean, she would have been completely out of her mind not to endorse Trump. Because at this point, if she didn't endorse Trump, she might as well just become a Democrat. What's the argument not to endorse Trump at this point? Given the race between Trump and Biden and RFK Jr., pro-abortion, pro-pederasty RFK Jr., I don't think so, okay? Obviously. So she made the wise choice. And this would seem to be evidence of what many of us suspected from the beginning, which is that the primary was a fait accompli. And I said from the beginning I wasn't going to make an endorsement in the primary, and I said plenty of really nice things about Trump's competitors, notably Ron DeSantis, Nikki Haley too, even though she, in the early days, didn't seem quite as strong as DeSantis against Trump. But it just always looked from the beginning like Trump was running like a quasi-incumbent, so it didn't really matter. It was kind of like a fake primary. And so if you turn on the incumbent or the quasi-incumbent, you're effectively switching parties. And she's not going to do that. Nikki Haley is going to remain a Republican. I suspect most of her supporters in the primary will, and the ones who won't were probably Democrats in the first place. They said it couldn't be done. A new razor introduced on Amazon had no chance of becoming the number one seller in any category. But because of you, Jeremy's second generation Precision 5 razor is officially the number one bestseller on Amazon. It's great news. But are you surprised? People are fed up with woke companies. We all want great woke-free products, more widely available. So Jeremy's razors crushing it on Amazon is no surprise. What is also not a surprise is how the experts thought we should do the new Jeremy's razors commercial, the second greatest commercial ever. Jeremy is simply thinking, how do we really sell second gen and let people know the new razors are radically redesigned and offer a truly superior shave? He steps away for 1 second, and the experts bring on Black Jeremy, Indians, Dot and Feather, I think both, a body positivity hire, a lot of people. It was all a blur. You will have to check out the commercial to see if Jeremy caved to the DEI crowd. But more importantly, you should go over to jeremysrazors.com, get the new second-gen razor. Like Jeremy said it backstage, these razors are remarkable. It is time to shave like a man, not a manifesto. One last note, and I think this probably is just being left unsaid by a lot of people, even though we all know it intuitively. If you go to Amazon, you'll notice that the face of Jeremy's razors is really, really handsome, a really good-looking, young, virile, quarter English, quarter Irish, half Italian man. And if we were trying to pinpoint exactly how did Jeremy's Razors become number one on Amazon, was it the commercial? Was it the product? Was it that really good looking, swarthy sex icon, being the face of it? Well, you go to Amazon, you see, you let me know what you think. Finally, it's time to get to my favorite time of the week when I get to hear from you in the mailbag. Our mailbag is sponsored by Pure Talk. Go to puretalk.com/Knowles, Knowles, to upgrade your cell phone service to America's most dependable 5G network. Take it away.
Hey,
time.
Michael, it's Landon, the resident LDS representative in a lot of your chats. I was hoping to get your view on what I'd call the hot girl problem, which I can't really make up my mind on. It seems like every time a female character is designed with some sex appeal in mind for the predominantly male audience, the feminists would come out of the woodwork to complain about the patriarchy and the male gaze. Thing is, though, back in the day, like the 90s, it was the old moral majority right who would make complaints about these characters on grounds of sexualization and pornography. I hope you see my conundrum. As a conservative, my instinct is to reject all feminist complaints wholesale. As a fan of many of the games and comics that these hot female characters appear in, I don't want to see the creatives behind them censored or stymied. As someone with a more traditionalist bend, I want to promote more modesty in our popular culture. And as a single straight male, I like looking at hot chicks in my games and movies. Hoping you might provide some clarity on this issue and keep up the good work.
Feminists are usually ugly. They don't need to be. People, no matter what their kind of natural appearance, they can do things that make them very pretty, just kind of the way they do their hair, the way they dress, the way they hold themselves and comport themselves. It's not just a purely physical thing. And women who are naturally beautiful, when they become feminists, they tend to make themselves much uglier. This is not even my own theory. A very liberal friend of mine of many years, he once said this to me, just as a matter of course. He said, "Oh yeah, Michael, of course, feminists are feminists because they're ugly, and they become more feminist because they make themselves uglier." Yeah, of course, that's what it is. So there is that. The feminists don't like the hot chicks. Now your fear is legitimate, which is you don't want to be just embracing pornography or something as a conservative, but there's a difference between beauty and pornography, and it's what the appeal is to. Beauty appeals to, certain appetites, certainly, but it's also reasonable. It appeals to the reason as well. And it can be restrained and it partakes of the virtues. Pornography appeals to the prurient interest. It's all libido. Pornography is actually very unreasonable. This is why cultures that are really convulsed by lust do things that are totally absurd and unreasonable. You just picture some orgy, whether we're talking about an ancient bacchanal or we're talking about some modern Epstein Island kind of thing. Just picture it. It's people doing a lot of weird, kooky, bizarre things. It's unreasonable. So that would be the line. Don't let the feminists bully you into taking beauty away and beautiful women away. But just make sure that beauty is reasonable. That it's appealing to more than just your lower appetites. Next question.
Hey, Michael. Back from America's Evil Top Hat. I've just been looking at the critical response to Abraham Raisi's death. First, they went from, they were bombed, Bibi's got to resign, to it was an inside job, all the corruption, to it was the storm. But I have a fourth theory, conspiracy theory, if you will. You know how Saudi Arabia for the last 5 years has been doing the cloud seeding? And then Dubai had a torrential downpour. The whole city got flooded. They didn't have the infrastructure. They blamed it on global warming, and then they blamed it on a vortex of storms. But what if Saudi Arabia managed to weaponize their own mistakes? Anyways, love the show. God bless.
We need to play a game of Clue or something like this. Yeah, it could have been any number of people. Yeah, it could have been the Saudis. The Saudis don't like the Iranians. Yeah. Could have been the Saudis, could have been the Israelis, could have been the Americans, could have been, I don't know, could have been an internal dissident, could have been the Ayatollah. I don't know, maybe he just got sick of his president. The reason that none of that really holds for me is killing the president of Iran doesn't really do very much. It doesn't change the political circumstances for anyone, for Israel, for Saudi Arabia, for America, for anyone really. Because the presidency is not where the power is held in Iran. The power rather is with the Ayatollah. So if someone had gone in and assassinated the Ayatollah, whoa, okay, now we're talking about a major global upheaval. But if you just kill the president, the Ayatollah is going to put some new president, and it's not really going to matter. So that's why, some other reasons too, but that's, I guess, one of the main reasons why I think probably bad weather, lots of fog, mountains, and helicopters, which don't have the best safety record, probably the easier explanation. If it can get Kobe, it can get anybody. Next question.
Hi, Michael. My name is Lauren, and I am the very lucky mama of 2 little boys. One is almost a year old, and the other one is set to make his appearance in November. Now that my oldest is starting to understand words like yes, no, outside, bath, etc., we have been doing a lot of modeling manners like thank you, no thank you, yes or no sir, etc. Because of this, my husband and I have started looking into some old school manners that we'd like to teach our boys, and maybe some manners that we weren't taught when we were growing up. And who better to give us some ones to start with than the Dapper Don himself, Michael Knowles. So, what are your favorite manners that you'll be teaching your boys so that they grow up to be the kinds of people you're proud to send out into the world? Thank you very much, and I hope you have a great day.
Great question. Here's one I want to start with, because it drives me crazy when people don't know how to do it. And when I see men violating this rule. You're walking on a sidewalk, you and your little honey. The man walks closest to the street, always. The reason for this is so that when the horses gallop by, they don't splosh up all the kind of muck and guck and yuck onto the woman. If anything, it'll hit the man. And it's a bit safer, and always the man on the outside. That's an easy one. Fix that now. I never want to see a woman walking closest to the road when her cowardly husband is walking on the inside. Next one. Obviously, hold the door for a woman. You hold the door when she enters a room. You hold the door when she enters a car. Some people now, I think, believe this is too over the top. It's not. It's a very simple thing to do, and it's very civilized. And it shows your woman, your wife, your girlfriend, anyone, your auntie, any woman, that you respect her and that you're a gentleman. You just go. It's very simple. You walk around the car, come in, walk around. No big deal. It doesn't need to be a big deal. Other manners, of course, yes or no, sir, or thank you so much. And a lot of this is just modeled. You don't have to teach it explicitly. I notice this because I try to follow these rules myself. Then my son, my toddler, he'll walk in. I'll hold the door for him. I say, after you, buddy. I say, oh, thank you so much. Oh, thank you. Oh, you're very welcome, buddy. Oh, that's a very, very polite way to say it. Oh, yes, thank you, Dada. And then, of course, grace before meals. That's an important manner. You don't begin eating until everyone is sat down, until everyone is served. Or, if the one person who hasn't been served says, please begin, then you say the grace, and then you eat. That's a very basic one. So many more. Maybe we should do Michael's manners or rules of etiquette or something. But that's a good place to start. Okay, next question.
Hi, Michael. This is Simcha. I love your show. I just wanted to comment on the important things first. This week on Tuesday, someone made a joke about Moses crossing the Red Sea to get to the other side. And according to Jewish text, he actually came back on the same side. They made a semicircle. But with regards to my question is about the land of Israel and the stuff going on there and the Jewish people, because the Jewish people, certainly according to Jewish tradition and probably also according to many Christians, are still the chosen people, or at least according to all Christians, they were at some point. Does that mean that people should care more about what goes on with the Jews and they should care about the fate of the Jewish people in Israel, etc., more than a different war going on somewhere else in the world, which is not necessarily related to them, meaning that even regular Americans should actually care and have an opinion about what's going on in Israel? Thank you for answering my question.
Yes, basically. I'm not even saying they should. I'm just saying they do. Of course, the Jews are just a little different, and the Christians have a relationship with the Jews that is special and different from our relationship to the Tibetans. That's just a fact, because the Jews have, first of all, in the Old Testament, are the figure of God's people. You're pointing out that there are kind of extreme versions, especially in Protestantism. There's the extreme of, I don't know, you think of a modern pastor inveighing against the Jews as like the worst people ever. Or you have dispensationalist Protestants who, worship the secular state of Israel, not to be too hyperbolic about it, and who believe that God has basically two different types of people and two separate deals or something. And that's not the traditional Christian view. But the traditional Christian view certainly is that the Jews in the Old Testament are the figure of God's people, just as so much is prefigured. So much, the New Testament is prefigured in the Old Testament. So what does this mean for our concern for the Jews in Israel and throughout the world? Well, this is not a new question. This has been debated since the earliest days of the church, and even early church fathers, writing in the 4th century, say, even when they say, "Look, the Jews are wrong, about this and that and this and that," but they'll say, "But don't bug them too much. Don't wipe them out. Don't force them out of lands." You see this really begin to coalesce in a letter from Pope Gregory the Great, called Sicut Iudeis, as to the Jews, and says, look, the Jews, they're getting a few things wrong here, but they are to be preserved. They're not to be molested. They're not to be kept from their religious practices. Just kind of let them do what they're going to do. And in the fullness of time, at God's appointed time, they'll come back in, they'll recognize that our Lord is who he says he is, but don't harass them too much. And this is reaffirmed time and time and time again. By many popes. Calixtus II, I guess, is the first who makes Sicut Iudeis a papal bull. You see this in statements of great saints, Bernard of Clairvaux among them. So yeah, that's the view. The Jews are. We look forward to when we are all united and the Jews enter the church, and that'll be great. But in the meantime, the Jews, they're a particular people. One of the arguments for not bugging the Jews too much is they're a testament to the old law. They're kind of like a living testament to the old law, even though two roads diverged in a yellow wood at the time of the incarnation. But yes, of course, that's the case. And anyone telling you otherwise, pretending that, oh no, well, I don't know, our relationship with the Jews must be the same as our relationship with the Uyghurs or with the, I don't know, Siberians or something, is, I think, being disingenuous. Okay, it's Fake Headline Friday. The rest of the show continues now. You do not want to miss it. Head on over to dailywire.com. Use code Knowles at checkout for 2 months free on all annual plans.